Ratched is a 2020 television series set in 1940s America and is based on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's a tense drama series which focuses on Ratched, a nurse who takes a job at a psychiatric hospital where increasingly disturbing experiments are taking place. In this critical commentary, I will explore how Ratched creates meaning for the viewer by analysing a scene from episode 5 called Charlotte's Abnormal Psyche. In this scene, one of the patients has a breakdown in Dr. Hanover's office. For this discussion, I will be analysing cinematography and performance whilst also commenting on the ideological implications which underpin the cinematographer's choices. The scene begins with a wide-angle establishing shot of Hanover's office. Applying Brown's knowledge of another film, Wells uses a distortion of wide-angle lenses for psychological effects. This wide emphasises the psychological isolation Charlotte feels by utilising depth of field. Creating a visual space between the audience and character isolates them in the office, utilising the size of the set to show the solitude of the characters. It's a powerful metaphorical image which sets the premise for the scene, applying preconceptions on towards the audience. Simon Dennis himself questions what the shots are saying as to pace himself to expose the story through the set. The slow pacing allows the set to be absorbed by the audience, signifying to the viewer that this is important and transferring narrative information through the captivating image. This technique is more in line with what we would expect to see from a film. Compared to the dull arrival of McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we can see how it's focused on the inherent naturalism in context with the rest of the film. We know there is an important story beat about to happen. Much the same with the beginning of this scene, its pace has altered from the previous sequence as a signifier to the audience. It comes in close to the characters, highlighting them as the focal point of information. Colour acts as almost a repression of the character's psychology. In itself, it's a complex and composite element, interlocking several elements when applied in an artistic sense. The colour aesthetics of cool blues and mottled yellows elicit specific emotions from the viewer. They are passive colours, associated with being calm, introspective and moody. The attraction of these colours consequently becomes a juxtaposition for what we are seeing. The confused, muddled anger, psychological pain and distress of the character, whilst also managing to reference the introspective nature of the mental health institution. The immersive nature of Dennis's workflow, along with the wide lens that expands and distorts space, pulls the viewer into the dreamy mise-en-scène. The blurry, arching windows hint to an aquarium, framed as to evoke atmospheric observation. Television images are framed and composed with the factors of reduced screen size, so the mise-en-scène therefore is made to overwhelm the viewer, achieving this by utilising the grand doors, desk and windows. It works to thrust the audience into this alien world, to feel how the character Charlotte feels in this moment. The actors themselves benefit from the mise-en-scène and how it has been constructed within this 360-degree set. This allows them to bring qualities and expectations and therefore produce meanings, irrespective of the aims of the director. Oquendo adopted a method acting style, one which utilises melodramatic gestures in terms of their intense and immediate, expressive, effective signification to portray a climax of emotion. Tending towards the ideas of Irving Goffman, performance is an unintentional product of an individual's response to situations. With these ideas in mind, we can see how Oquendo delivers a performance which harbours authenticity, almost blurring the line with art cinema in terms of its narrative realism. She's a completely physical actor. She thinks physically and lets her body lead her to the emotions. Applying theatrical techniques to play the character, she builds a life behind the three roles and then delivers them with effective performance signs, most notably her voice, facial expressions and body movement within this scene. This allows her to portray the characters with real suffering, evoking powerful emotions from an audience. The signs themselves derive their meaning from the environment the characters are set in. The audience will perceive these performance signs as a mental breakdown, which can then be contextually applied to the character's world. Analysis of acting traits tend to extract particular mannerisms or gestures that are repeated across a body of films as a feature of the star's persona. We can apply this to Oquendo's idolect when performing psychologically complex characters. Her role in Criminal UK is an example of the way she controls her voice specifically to portray a character to the audience. Her pitch is low, the soft textured timbre inviting you into the psychology of the character she's playing. In Ratched, she uses the same technique, beginning with a soft voice to pull the viewer up close, before ramping it up in harshness as she begins to delve into rage, the pitch following suit. This technique pulls the viewer into feeling what the character is going through, the confusion, anger and pain. Her charged facial expressions and erratic body movement help to sell the multiple characters she's playing, and I think there's an argument to be made for how it can be seen as a film noir technique. The classical ideal of the noir tough man springs to mind. The use of temporal and energy qualities of filmic movement, gestures, and facial and vocal expressions prompt audiences to see when and why noir tough guys are masking their true thoughts and feelings. This series bases itself around psychologically complex characters, and I believe this technique can be applied to how Oquendo has exploited an older performance style to deliver a layered, realist performance which harbours an older feel. You can see this in the way she plays the American looking for Hitler. Circumstantial with the setting of the series, 1947, I think this is contextually referencing older actors whilst placing her style in line with the time setting effectively. The performance itself is supported by how events are shown in real time from multiple points of camera view within television, and the unique way the cinematographers implemented them.
So what we did, or what I'd sort of try to do that scene in particular, there's a few of them, is we cross the line all the time, which is obviously a cardinal sin with TV or any form of language because it confuses people. So when me and, say, Dan Minahan would rehearse the scene, and it almost fell off his tongue too. I just said, Dan, wouldn't it be fascinating if we have like a neutral camera and a camera that crosses one line and then the other line?
That results in the effect that the cameras and their space represent the three personalities. As they jump around the room, Charlotte splits into her different characters. This accentuates pieces of the performance so that they are unmistakable to an audience. The visual product is that of confusion, yet paired with the performance, it fits well with the character's psyche. It's particular to Charlotte, making it a key creative decision to express the narrative of the scene in a unique and interesting way. Underpinning this performance lies ideological implications regarding mental health disorders, a theme which runs through this entire series. Sophie Oquendo represents a split personality disorder, and as mentioned, takes on a theatrical acting style to portray her character's psyche, utilising realist elements. In that way, fiction and reality are potentially intertwined, which might mark the audience's preconceptions of real psychiatric institutions. The preconception of real is important to note. The issues that are being represented in this scene have no scientific backing. The audience viewing this may have never heard or seen this before, so what will they be taking away from such a strange encounter, and how may they characterise this disorder? A viewer may misinterpret the performance, or have a conflicting ideology about mental health, which will then be applied to their own interactions with the real sufferer. In conclusion, the abnormal psych scene in Ratched applies a unique mise-en-scène, placing it firmly within realism, colour theory that harbours a dreamlike quality and naturalist performance to express meaning, in this case aiming to immerse an audience into the mind of the character. Nonetheless, the ideological implications hover over the themes of this particular scene, raising substantial questions of the content.